what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about natural selection. And so we're going to be taking a look at several different examples of this idea that those organisms that are survived for their environment will survive and pass on those traits, and those that are not the fittest for their environment won't survive. And so we're going to take a look at the walking sticks that we went ahead and worked with today in class. We're also going to look at pocket mice, and we're going to be looking at the actual peppered moth. So to kind of make sure that we understand, back in the before the Industrial Revolution, there used to be a lot of white moths. So if you take a look at the screen, you'll see that there were these moths that there was black and there was white, and that 98% of the moths were white. And so they blended really well into the trees. So you can see right here, it's kind of hard to see that moth right there. And it's because they blended into the environment. But what ended up happening, what they started noticing and taking a look at data, after the Industrial Revolution, when they were going ahead and creating a lot of pollution, the trees actually were covered with this thick, dark soot. And that they started seeing a change in the actual number of moths that were white, that it actually decreased in population from 98% to much lower. And they started to see an increase in the black moths. And so you can kind of see up here that the bark of the tree is covered in soot, and so the pollution is going ahead and changing the environment. And when it changed the environment, there was also a radical shift in the types of organisms that they started to see with the moths. That there was actually the black phenotype appeared to be increasing, and the white phenotype actually started to decrease. And so this gave them the idea that oftentimes organisms' genetic diversity, you'll see a shift in the phenotype ratios based on the environment or the pressures with the environment. And that this idea that if you're more successful for the environment, then you will pass on those traits, and you'll see those traits more often in the population. Whereas if they are not successful, the phenotype is not successful for the environment, you will tend to not see those traits as often. And so that's the idea of natural selection. So here's another example. Here we have pocket mice. And so you can kind of see there's white pocket mice, or this kind of sand-colored pocket mice, and then there's the dark black pocket mice. And you can see that there's a lot more of the white pocket mice or sand-colored pocket mice in this habitat. And that this is typically the ratio that you would normally see. You would see very few black ones, and that the black pocket mice would go ahead and usually get picked over because they were easier to see. They're not camouflaged into the environment. But what ended up happening is that their habitat got covered by lava flows. And what they started to see is that now that they're covered in lava flows, the sand-colored pocket mice, whoops, sorry about that, the sand-colored mice, they're visible now. They're easy to see. They're no longer blending into the environment. And so when there's that shift in the environment, all of a sudden you'll start to see a shift and change in the pocket mice. The sand-colored pocket mice are no longer fit for the environment, and you're going to start to see that natural selection shifting and changing, where it's more advantageous to be black-colored pocket mice than the sand-colored, because they blend more into the environment. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at how genetics and this idea of natural selection can go ahead and help us understand and explain why we're starting to see changes over time within specific populations. Now, you do want to make sure that you're starting to be able to go ahead and apply the walking sticks. So we're going to be going ahead and working with the walking sticks in class. If you remember the walking sticks, there was 3 different colors. There's the green, there's the brown, and then there's the green brown colored walking stick. I want you to think back to that activity that we did in class and start asking yourself, why is it that they were able to survive in certain environments and not others? So why were, for example, the green walking sticks able to survive in the bush environment where they weren't necessarily able to survive as easily in the wood chip environment? And how that change over time, when we tested them for 5 generations, how that change in time changed their phenotypic ratio of that population. And how those genes were either passed on or they weren't passed on based on the success of those phenotypes. That's what we're going to be starting to talk about in class. Make sure you have the general understanding of natural selection. Again, natural selection is the survival of the fittest. So if they're fit for their survival, for the environment, they're going to survive. meaning if their phenotype is favorable for the environment, they'll survive. Those are not favorable will not survive, and so they won't pass on those traits, so you won't see those the generation of those phenotypes as often. We'll be ready for class tomorrow. See ya.